San Diego. As you can see, the background behind me, it's a beautiful city. And I welcome you to Global Relocation News, which is an old logo, an old title that I had about 20 years ago in print and have since made it work on TV and Zoom. And here we are. We're going forward now into what will be a regular broadcast. Not sure how often, but I'll let you know. And with us today are a variety of guests who are expert in their own realms, and we're going to learn all about it. Coming up in about 40 minutes or so, there'll be one or two others joining us from different time zones. First, I want very much to introduce to you in the audience out there in TV land, Chris Lechner from Southern California,
Hello.
who, as you can see, is the broker and owner of Weichert Global Point. Tell us about Global Point.
Global Point is a real estate brokerage here in Southern California. We're affiliated with Weichert Realtors, and we have offices throughout the 5 counties in Southern California, ranging from our coverage area ranges from North San Diego County to Riverside County, Orange County, Los Angeles, and Ventura County. So broad-based landscape as far as coverage for real estate needs, and our company itself primarily deals with relocation real estate.
Let me ask you a question about some of the market. It's such a diverse market. I lived in West Side, LA for many years, and I've been in San Diego since '96. But I get up to LA a lot. And what percentage, just guess, what percentage of your business is defense industry related? Is there any way for you to guess that?
Yeah, it. I would. We have some defense contractors that we work with closely. I would say it's dwindled, maybe 2%. It's dwindled over the years because of the different defense contractors relocating their business to the Washington, D.C. metro area, Texas, and other parts of the country because of the California business climate. But they still do have a footprint here and relocating their employees in and out of the area.
Yes, okay, good. Well, I say that because when I relocated myself and my business from Boston in 1980, it was the beginning of President Reagan's realm.
Mhm.
And he said, we're going to fight the evil empire. And that meant building up the defense industry in Southern California, of course. And when we published the California Bound back then in 1981, the chamber took it up as their official guide, and LA Economic Development Corp used it as their PR tool for land developers. And the relocation industry, including I think you a long time ago, were involved in using the guide as a relocation
Yeah.
PR tool. I thank you very much. Um, when we never did an Atlanta bound, but we did some other magazines, and Ginger Merrick at the time, who's coming to us from Atlanta, was involved as leading global mobility in Coca-Cola Corporation. Now is the director of mobility services and operations with Interlink. Hi, Ginger. Welcome. Tell us about Interlink today.
Hi there. Nice to see you again, Ed, and everyone else on the call. I appreciate it being a part of this. And so Interlink is a relocation management company headquartered in Roswell, Georgia, and it's family owned. We've been in business over 35 years, and we provide end-to-end full relocation management for domestic and international mobility. Uh, we do everything from the guaranteed buyout programs, buyer value option programs, to household goods and temp living, every type of the assistance for all the different programs.
And how active are you personally involved with the real estate transactions?
As a relocation management company, we're very active in that process. As you know, when it becomes a tax compliant transaction, you have to make sure that you're doing everything to meet those compliance measures and that the clients can then enjoy that. The one and only tax savings we have at this time is the selling costs of the home. So we're very involved, and having a team of consultants that have over, on an average, 25 years experience is really what is necessary to get that done in this competitive market too.
Well, it's really great to have your leadership of you and your voice, not only on this program, but in the industry still, because it's us people who have been around a long time have the perspective. What's your take, therefore? What's your take on this legal stuff that's going on with buyer brokerage and representation? And is it impacting the relocation business yet?
Well, I think a lot of us are all taking a little bit of a wait and see attitude. But I do think that the brokers in our broker network are doing a really good job training their agents that, this is a new day. There's no more, oh, we'll get that pesky piece of paper signed. Those days are over. And that it's a very different conversation when it comes to representing those buyers. So when we're referring a transferee to a buyer's agent, we're going to work with those type of brokers that have that training for their agents and that we have confidence that everything is going to be handled with the utmost care and also compliant with all the new rules as things evolve.
It's very interesting. Chris, would you like to comment on that issue?
Yeah, it's for the most part, the buyers are accepting of our corporate buyers that are out there, transferees. They're accepting and understanding if it's the process is explained and the changes that have been implemented throughout the country. They're very understanding, and what we do is we work with the RMCs, utilizing their addendums and and then they're representing the buyers, putting asking for the seller payment of the buyer broker commissions, and generally the sellers are still going to pay those buyer broker commissions. So that way, that onus is not falling back on the buyer. So it in a sense, it's business as usual, but not really, because we've decoupled the commissions to where it's, each buyer will be responsible for the buyer broker commissions, and the sellers will be responsible for the listing broker commissions. And so we've decoupled them, but yet as far as our process and negotiating, it's pretty much is still falling back onto the sellers, and the sellers are willing to pay those commissions, or for the most part.
Thank
And
you very much for that. Yes, Ginger.
on that, from the policy consulting point of view, that's what I meant on a wait and see, making formal policy document changes, because so much is still kind of evolving on that.
And again, it depends, with each situation, and you're representing,
Exactly.
whether you're representing the buyer or whether you're representing the seller, your fiduciary duty is to them, your responsibility to your client. So you're trying to negotiate the best possible situation, offer, sale of a property on their behalf. So it comes down to negotiating on behalf of your client as well.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Jen.
Work hand in hand with the RMC consultant.
Yeah,
yes.
Thank you.
And the RMCs too play a big role in it as well, explaining the situation to the transferees, because they're the catalyst for making sure that the experience goes well, and then we have to take that with the ball and run with it, making sure that transferees has that great experience and making it easy for the consultants at the RMCs as well, so that there's no hiccups along the way.
Exactly.
Thank you. Let's go to Jen. Hi, Jen. Welcome.
Hi, Ed. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So, Jen, why don't you do a much better job than I could at this point in time? Introduce yourself and your name and the name of the company, the escrow, and talk about add to this conversation about dealing with today's buyers and sellers, buyers in particular, and your positioning.
Sure, I'd love to. My name is Jen Mendigutia, and I'm with California Coast Escrow, and we're a Southern California-based escrow company, and we do escrow throughout the whole entire state. My specific background has been relocation, and I've been in it since I was 19, officially being paid, but my parents owned a boutique relocation company that they started 30 years ago, and so it was dinner room conversation. So it's on there. So it's definitely my focus point. I think Ginger and Chris really nailed it on the head when they're talking about the NAR settlement and all of that. The wait and see is the great approach, and we built it up, and we're so ready for dealing with it. I think that the best outcome of it is buyers agents are truly selling their services and what it is that they're doing. And like Ginger mentioned, it's not a wait and see anymore, and we'll deal with that pesky paper later, and don't worry, you're not paying for us, the seller pays for it. It's now an upfront conversation of how much you can owe, what my services are, and they're actually putting together a presentation like a listing presentation back in the day on there, where we only concentrated on the sellers. The buyers are now getting that service and all of their. I was actually talking to a friend yesterday, and he does a lot of corporate relocations. And since April, he has information that in over 5,000 transactions, the buyer's agent's commissions went from 2.4% to 2.6%. So they're selling their services. They know on their, and they're working really hard on the relocation side. The relocation companies understand the value of paying a buyer's agent's commission when they're dealing with listings. They don't want to lose that buyer's pool. And then when they're on the corporate side for the buy side, the buyers understand why there's commission being paid and how that becomes part of the negotiations.
Boy, that's really interesting. We're not done with all of this, but I want to make sure that you all know my friend who also grew up in the property business, but from London. James Moss, welcome again. You're on mute.
There we go. Hi. Got
Oh,
it
hi there.
working. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not bad
Okay.
for a technology company, right? Uh,
No, James Moss and I have known each other a long time. He he grew up in the realm of property, but from a Brit point of view, and is now living in Manhattan and dealing with rich people who want to buy and invest, among other people. Meet
well,
Chris, meet
that's a,
Jen, meet Christian, and meet Ginger. This is James
hey
Moss,
guys,
a
great to
really
meet
good
you.
guy.
Great to meet you. Great to meet you. But it's really interesting. I mean, just tell you very quick what I do. So I do real estate and relocation. That's what Curzon is all about. Curzon Central is the main real estate piece, and we operate in New York and we operate in London. Okay. Curzon Relo is our relocation arm, which is actually technology driven. So we provide the full range of relocation services, but we do most things off, if I can find one of these, a mobile phone. Okay, so that's sort of what we do. But we also provide the full gambit of traditional DSP relocation services. So clients get to take their choice as to which route they want to go. When it comes to buying, I have probably close to 25 to 30 years of experience in helping clients buy real estate, predominantly in London, but more recently in the US. Our clients tend to be of two groups. In terms of relocation, they tend to be companies, individuals, international students, that type of thing. In terms of buying, we actually act more for a private client market, and we provide, if you like, a bespoke hand-holding buying service. I'm a British chartered surveyor, which you don't have in America, and you'll think, what the heck is that? And it's a sort of weird combination of law, of building, and various other components. So it's a bit like an appraiser as well, if you like. I'm also a broker here in New York, and I have a team of agents here, and we work predominantly in New York City. We also cover Connecticut, but we're really urban center types of people. In terms of buying agents, we've almost always have represented buyers. We've bought, I don't know, as a company, a couple $1 billion worth of real estate, probably more than that if you actually add it up over the the decades, basically. So the NRA situation in the States and in New York is actually home territory to me, because when we represent clients, we do it under contract anyway. So when we're representing relocation clients, we're making it very clear that we're acting for them and that they pay us. That's the way we do it. And under the New York rental arrangements, that is the 15% and so on. That's the way it works. That's also just about to change. So it's going to be really interesting what happens there. From Curzon's point of view, my point of view, we're really comfortable in that space because that's the way we're used to working. And I love the transparency of that. I hate dual agency, to be honest with you, and try and avoid it. And I know that it sounds quite attractive that you can act for the buyer, you can act for the seller. It's actually a minefield. And I think it's much better, personally, to be much clearer with your clients about who's doing what and who's paying whom.
Agreed.
Now, if you can always be open with them, transparent with them, and say, look, if the seller's prepared to pay, 3% commission or whatever it's going to be, we're happy to do that if you're happy with that. But we can't guarantee it. Each property is different. Each seller's different. Each agent you're engaging with is different. But I believe in total transparency. And I think if you act for your clients, you should expect to be paid by your clients. And I think you should make that very clear up front. That's what we do. It works pretty well. I mean, we're not, a global company, and it's great to be in this company here, Chris, for example.
Thank you very much.
But
Yeah.
that's the way we approach it.
Yeah. So Curzon, just real quick while we have your attention here, Curzon is London-based, now New York and London-based, and it's an old line name. And so CurzonCentral.com, right?
Yes.
That's the homepage, and the Relo connects with that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. In fact, we run everything through Curzon Central nowadays. So we don't run Curzon Relo email addresses. If anyone emails Curzon Relo, it goes to Curzon Central. It gets picked up by me or one of my team members. But we like to have the differentiation there of Curzon Relo, which is in fact is global. It's not just working in New York and London. Whereas Curzon Central, our main property side, is really focused on New York. New York, also the States. We have worked out in California for clients, but it tends to be more central around New York. London, we tend to do London, but also the sort of equivalent of Westchester County and what we call the home counties in the UK. Where you have very high value properties and homes and stuff like that, but we tend to be more central prime urban people.
So in New York and in London, is the escrow business? Jen is owner of an escrow
Yeah.
company and that angle. Um, how does that work in New York and London? Escrow.
It's a really great question. In New York, we really hand everything over to the lawyers and let them deal with the escrow companies and all the rest. And we don't do a lot of that. In London, we don't. In UK, you don't really have escrow companies. We have a different type of structure. There's plenty of escrow goes on, but it's held through the solicitors, the British lawyers, who are regulated by a thing called the Law Society, which deals with the holding of funds, the transfer of funds to order, that type of stuff. So it's a different model. It's a different model.
Jen, would you like to comment on that?
I was just with New York, it's a little different because they do attorney closings and they actually sit at a table and do a table closing, where in escrow, it's really rare that the parties ever meet or see each other. So a little bit different there.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I find it fascinating, sort of working with both systems and sort of switching between the two. And my learning curve, I mean, we've done some pretty chunky deals, but I'm always on a bit of a learning curve when it comes to escrow, title insurance, this sort of stuff, which again we sort of deal with where I come from. And I'm almost American, by the way, so don't think that I'm operating as a Brit here. Um, but it's the same. It's the same approach. Okay, the law is fundamentally the same. The approach is the same, but the idiosyncrasies of the way the market and the processes have developed here are quite different from London / international. So you've got this sort of unique American model, which is great because it's such a vast market. And New York, I mean, I operate in New York, so I've got prime $150 million apartments outside my front door type of thing. Not quite, but you know where I'm coming from. And you've got these different processes. I work for a very large prime New York brokerage for a while, and it was a fascinating learning curve on sort of seeing how they did things and approach things, and it was really more the sort of nuances than it was the fundamentals of structures and processes and law. Um, so yeah,
Uh,
it's quite an art. And I'm going to throw one more thing, and then I'll pass over to you, Ed, and somebody else. The U.S. banking system is an absolute nightmare to deal with. Okay, and I just want to say that because of the way it's developed, because of the way it's regulated by the states. So I've been dealing with checks, right? I've got one here. I won't show it to you. It's not large enough anyway. But I've been dealing with checks, and I'm thinking, I haven't dealt with a check for 25 years. What do I do with this thing?
Yep.
Anyway, one adapts, and it moves on. But the banking system here, trying to shuffle money around from outside of the state or internationally into the US is really, really tricky. It's really, really tricky. And we're quite good at guiding clients into that space. And we have some great relationships with that. But it's taken a while to figure it out, to be honest with you. And it's still not guaranteed. Anyway, just to throw that out there.
We've been joined by Christian Ternedden. He's originally from Switzerland and has been in the U.S. a number of years, of course, and very, very much welcome you to
Thank you.
join us. And then also my friend in Colorado Springs, Harry Salzman, who's a renowned realtor for many years, been involved in relocation. So Harry, thanks very much for joining us. I know you've been really busy, today with personal issues. So, Christian, give us your take on what you've just heard, and Harry, will go to you in just a couple of minutes. So, I know Christian as a very detailed-oriented gentleman who wants to be sure is clearly understood and it's just a perfect repository of what has gone on here in the last 20 minutes. And I don't need you to comment on everything, but what's your take? And first introduce yourself and your
Sure.
your immediate background and what you're doing right now and what you would hope to do. We have a large audience out there, so use this occasion appropriately.
I will. So, yeah, my name's Christian Terneden. As Ed said, I grew up in Switzerland. I was born in Germany and moved to Switzerland when I was 9 years old. Lived in Norwich, the UK, for a year as an exchange student. I have a master's in linguistics and English and American literature, but after a little bit of doing marketing, I got into the relocation industry once I've moved to Southern California over 20 years ago. And I worked for Cardis, and then for the last 14 years, I worked for Sterling Lexicon. And now I'm kind of in between jobs on the one hand. On the other hand, I am working part-time on an AI project, which has nothing to do with mobility. Since Ed asked, I would like to stay in mobility, of course, and like to get into a position where I can be of service, consultative, sharing my experience. So as to the comments, so first of all, the banking system, James, yeah, insane. I grew up in Switzerland with checks being obsolete towards the end of the 80s, moved to the UK in 1993, was reintroduced to checks because I had to open a bank account on campus at the University of East Anglia, where I studied. Then moved back to Switzerland, forgot that checks existed, moved to America, and one of the first things my then girlfriend, now wife, did was to go to the bank, and I got a checkbook. So it's this constant time warp in terms of banking. And then, of course, with relocation, sending wires abroad, learning what a Swift code was, training my team on how this works as a layperson in a way, because I've never worked for a bank before. It was very intricate, and a lot of Americans don't really know what it is, how it works, what exactly a routing number does. They don't know any of that either, so I had to train them on it. With regards to escrow and attorney states, yes, that was one of the things I had to train relocation consultants that got into home sale, home purchase on, that it's not just one system. It's not just the American system. Depends on where you are. And even sometimes within the state, it depends on where you are and who's doing what exactly. And it's very important that as the relocation consultant, you understand that so that you can explain it. I remember being on vacation in Las Vegas, across from the Hilton where Elvis Presley had his famous residence. And somebody called me from the closing table and said, I need your help with the closing for this relocating employee. And I said, I have nothing to do with that. We have a real estate department who deals with your escrow department, who deals with you. I'm 4 steps removed from you. And I had to kind of explain all that to make sure this agent knew where she had to go next. So it is definitely very intricate, and there's a lot to learn and a lot to explain to other people and share what you've learned.
Oh, that's amazing. So once again, people, use the chat below. All right. And just, it's not for sales purposes, it's for connecting purposes. So your email, your website, your LinkedIn, because that'll be an ROI tomorrow, the next day, the next day. There you could reach out to these really smart people here and go the next step. Harry Salzman and I have known each other for a generation or two. He's in
Pushing the
3 or 4.
Colorado Springs and has had his own property company, owns real estate for many years. Very, very successful, top of the heap as it goes. Harry, Colorado Springs, by the way, he toured me and Joanne around Colorado Springs this past May. And we were guests in his beautiful home overlooking the mountains. It was wonderful. But the highlight really was, in addition to drinking the scotch that they gave me, was the the tour around the U.S. Air Force Academy, which is right there. Vast acreage, beautiful area, and really impressive. So thank you. I'm saying that publicly. Harry, tell us about Colorado Springs right now in this year end. I know everything's impacted by interest rates, but give us your take briefly about Colorado Springs now.
Sure. Thanks, Ed, and hello to everybody else. Yeah, market conditions are parallel to what's going on around USA. Personally, this has been my lowest year in decades. And here's the reason why. And think about this. The statistics are between 60% and 70% of every homeowner in USA, like most of you who are right here now on a screen, you did a refi. Remember when your rates were from 2.5 to maybe 3 3/4. Jen, you're smiling. So, so did 60 to 70% of homeowners in those days, around 3.5 years ago. So based upon that, people are going to stay put. They're going to upgrade what they have. They're going to remodel what they have. Why? Because it's going to cost you twice as much in an interest rate in today's market than what it was when you did your refi. That's normal. So out of that 60 to 70%, think about this, and those are the ones who refied. Well, there's also a percentage, and depending upon who we talk to, 15, 20% paid cash. So they don't even have a mortgage at any rate. What's left? Well, maybe there was 20% of people out there who are renters, short-term, long-term. They've got the money in the bank. They've got the qualification. They've got the desire someday I want to own, but for some reason they're renting today. So where I'm going is, what's the potential number of prospects, no matter what city in the country, who are going to have buyer prospects? Answer most likely is it's a lot lower than what we think. People are going to stay put. So given those facts, I'm going to share with you right now what all of you should watch next week. And this is called, you ready? The Real Estate Forecast Summit. I've seen it quarterlies for many years, and this is called the Essential Data to Drive Your Business Forward. It's put out by NAR and to our chief economist, Lawrence Yun. I've seen him about 4 different places. He is the guru. He is well respected as the smartest real estate economist in the country. Yeah, he got his PhD out of Harvard, and he's been on the Federal Reserve Board. Anyway, so what I'm sharing with you, you can go on. This is a freebie. And next, we're talking about December 12th, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And it's going to give all of us a projection for next calendar year. Now, who's going to be on those players that are going to put that together? I'm going to give you their names. Dr. Robert Dietz, he's the chief economist for NAR. Danielle Hale, she's the chief economist, Realtor.com. Michael Frantinelli, he's a senior economist and senior VP of Mortgage Bankers Association. So between those minds and their brain power of the real world, this is going to be good data for everybody to kind of take a look and kind of localize it to what you feel, what's your relative strength to your community, county, state, whatever, but it's going to give you a good forecast of what to do with the information. Once again, because what's the number of suspect or prospects who can even buy next year? And oh, by the way, most of them are going to say, well, based upon what Trump is going to be doing, we know rates are going to come down. I'm going to wait. Mm-hmm. So who knows if they wait for interest rates to come down? Not a doubt. Median prices most likely are going to be going up.
Let me ask you, Harry, about I don't want to belittle it at all, but it's kind of a trick. Not a trick, but it's a secret passage, a secret way that you are helping your buyers in the past. And is that secret available to these good people on the show?
Secret? Hey, listen, Ed, as we've talked, my feeling, anything and everything is negotiable. Don't forget it. You can quote me on that. And so today, because mortgage loan originators, they're way down on business. So how about going to, if you want to buy a house now, say, hey, here's the lender or the realtor should know, here's my favorite or trustworthy who I've used. But you say, hey, look, I'll do my loan origination today on the house I want to buy with you only if you give me a year to refi when rates come down X amount. Let's talk about that. You give me an opportunity to refi at a lower origination fee, you bet I'll use you as my lender now. Anything is negotiable.
And
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
add on
Ginger.
to that, if I could, Harry, that's one of the things that the relocation management company can build in to the programs with our lenders that we have with direct bill. They do have programs, and some of them we've worked out at Interlink are up to 18 months, and they will call you and they're going to put it on an automatic flag and say, look, if it gets here, we're gonna do a refi, we're gonna do it at minimal cost. We don't have these other costs in there that are lender fees. So all of that is so that you can get married to the house and not the mortgage, right?
yeah, but
Um,
Ginger and you and I know each other from WERC for
Yes,
God
yeah,
knows how many years.
yeah.
But now how many realtors know that?
Not, well, and that's where our consultants come in and we work
Sure.
with relocation trained agents who do know that, and we're managing that process. But another thing we can do, and we have been doing, is working with our clients to come up with other policies. Let's say they have some key talent, they need to go somewhere. And where those people are coming from is just cost prohibitive for whatever reasons, okay? They don't have loss on sale programs, whatever the situation is. Well, we're helping them to develop other policies like a domestic commuter assignment, so that there's the guardrails for people going and being in another location, but also how do you manage the things like taxation, the travel back and forth, and so that you don't have everyone making a deal with their individual leadership and you've got everything all over the place, but making it happen for a certain period of time. And sometimes that actually works out and they do what they need to do there to meet the business goal, and they're actually going to move somewhere else. So it all works out.
So, Ginger, I want you to upload your slides. Start with one and tell us what it is and how it relates to what we're talking about. And then we'll go to the next and then the next.
Okay.
So take one at a time, use my screen share and go full screen. Okay.
Let's see.
Oh, there we go. It looks very nice, very
Oh,
clear.
so this is a little bit about Interlink. And I'm going to minimize all of you so I can see. So a little bit about our company. And we've been in business over 35 years. And again, we service companies of all different sizes, but typically they're Fortune 500 organizations to mid-sized companies who are moving people domestically here in the US or around the globe. And we do provide that end-to-end mobility management. One of the things I wanted to kind of share with the group is that by fostering a culture of mobility, companies can really find that they're investing in that talent. And it's allowing people to have access to a global talent pool. It encourages with the mobility, the diversity of thought, the diversity of experiences, as well as cross-cultural collaboration on the teams. And according to the last US Census, moving for a new job was the second most common reason for relocating. And 500,000 Americans relocated in 2013. So, so did you want me to continue or are we going to chat? I mean, you tell me, Ed, where do you want to go?
I think you should do the next one, and then I want to go to Chris and his slides so we can
All
have a
right,
conversation coast to coast
all right.
and in between.
All right, I didn't want to monopolize everything.
Oh, that's
One of
great.
the things I wanted to do is talk about the ROI of mobility programs. This is something that we've all struggled with. I know back when I was on the corporate side, you know, you're never going to make everyone happy in the financial group and the leadership group if you can't find how to measure and tell them what is the return on investment for all the money you're spending moving people around the world. And so there's several components to it, and every company can figure this out for themselves, but they typically will fall into several areas. The hard costs, you know, those are the actual relocation services, the travel, the gross up taxes, the compensation packages as well, because a lot of times when you're having an international move, particularly, you'll have cost of living, host housing, other things that are involved in it. And then there's the soft costs, the time, the resources, your internal resources, and your opportunity costs during the relocation time. And that's where having an RMC to help transition all of those moving pieces, pun intended, during that move helps people get to be productive as quickly as possible in their new location. Most of the time, people are managing two roles at the same time during their transition. So the time factor of what's happening for that employee and their family is critical. The productivity costs, like I mentioned, and then it's just stressful. The families need support as well. And then there's the compliance risks that we look over, and things like immigration, tax, and data privacy. We, as an RMC, will take very good care of all of those different areas and help companies to make sure that they're in compliance with all of those aspects of a move. But it can go into, a lot of people will look at the financials, they'll look at their employees' performance in the new location. Did they stay with the company? Did they return from an international assignment and they were gone within 6 months? Or did they stay and actually build their career with your company? And then overall, just generally morale. But it is one of the key things is to make sure that your ROI measurements are aligning with the business goals, so you can provide insights and improvement and benchmark your policy against other leaders and make sure that you have a competitive program.
This is really interesting. I want to ask Christian, because you have, and this is for the audience and the other panelists, you have years of experiencing of managing a remote team with Sterling Lexicon, and these are remote. So, with all that excellent information provided by Ginger just now, getting the ROI, what's your take on that? And does that ring bells? I would think it does.
Oh yeah, it definitely rings bells. The ROI to me is kind of the holy grail of relocation right now. That's what everybody's trying to get at. One aspect that I've just learned more about this morning in a webinar was about retention and measuring retention, figuring out how many people stay for how long, why. This has always been a bit of a mystery to me, because I saw relocating employees, particularly to places like Seattle, how they would get stolen by competitors, sometimes in mid-relocation. We had to call moving companies and say, yeah, it's that truck is no longer going to Austin, it's now going to Seattle. And then how do you deal with the logistics and the fallout of all that? This is something that is very, very important and not talked about enough. So I'm glad that Ginger is summarizing it like she is and bringing this to the table.
Isn't that interesting? Thank you. Let's go to Chris. Chris, what's your take on this? And please display your slides.
Bear with me while I get them uploaded.
That's all right. I have zero tech skills, so I
Me,
appreciate what you guys
me
are
too
doing.
when it comes to on this uploading.
Well, while
Um,
we're waiting, can I add one thing to what Christian just said?
Yes, of course.
Nothing to me is personally so sad is when someone comes back from an assignment and the initial response to that employee is, oh, it's great. Tell me all about it. And then they lose interest and they don't really feel valued, or that their global experience was valued by the company or the business where they're returning home to. So they leave the organization.
They don't belong anymore.
Yeah.
They don't belong in that organization. They may not feel that they belong to the country where they came from. And they feel like maybe they don't belong in their circle of friends anymore because they've had different experiences.
Right.
And somebody who's
Another
moved,
company is going to value it and say, oh.
that's right, because they're looking at it from a fresh perspective. And I think that somebody who's moved, particularly internationally, but also domestically, can empathize with that feeling of, okay, I'm uprooted, but everybody else is either rooted in a new location, they know everybody, and they're, they have their little circle, and I've left my old circle behind. I don't belong to these people anymore, really, either. So it's a very disconcerting feeling
You know,
sometimes.
repatriation is one of the most overlooked things in relocation.
Exactly.
And I read some statistics a couple years back, they're probably pre-pandemic, but it was something really extraordinary. It was something like 30 to 40% of relocatees going home, so to speak, would leave and go overseas again, or wherever they're going to go, usually overseas, within 2 to 3 years of their repatriation. So what had happened is their repatriation had failed. And companies in those days, I think they may be a bit better at it now, companies in those days just paid no attention.
Right.
I mean, I lived in the States like 30, 40 years ago, and I went to college here, and then I went back to the UK. It took me 2 years to settle back there.
Well,
And it was actually incredibly tough.
Is not losing that investment, because it's serious money. Whether you're moving someone from Ohio to Alabama, it's still a good amount of money.
And that's a really good point, because it's local as well as international. I mean, the States is a massive country, and it's so different everywhere. So yeah, Alabama to California to, I don't know, North Dakota. It's very, very different. Certainly,
but in Colorado Springs, it's heaven.
Without saying.
So Harry, you're at what, 7,000 feet, and the mountains go higher, and
That's right.
So you're in paradise. You're in paradise, right?
And Chris, thank you for letting me interrupt you there.
Oh, no, that's quite all right. Good conversation. As we're talking here, it reminds me, Christian, last month, at the end of last month at our local WRC chapter meeting, moderated on a panel, and we were talking about this, about the relocation experience, and with the competition of corporations trying to hire and get the best talent that they can for their needs. Relocation plays a big role in that, and I think, it sparked great conversation amongst the panelists as well as the crowd with questions, and a lot of times it's overlooked by the corporations of getting that experience, quality experience for the transferee and the new hires.
Yeah. Okay, Chris, show a slide.
So, go ahead. I'm sorry. Oh, I thought somebody was going to put that. Give me 1 second here.
Yeah. Okay. So this is about Southern California, right?
Yeah. So can everybody see my screen?
Yeah, it's black.
Uh-oh. Okay.
There we go.
Push the button. All right. So this is LA, and I see the arrow.
This is LA. So basically, when we started our conversation here today, we were talking about Harry was mentioning about the demand and what the forecasts look like, and why things are not you know, moving, the lack of inventory out there all around the country for the most part. And it all points to the interest rates, where 60–70% of the country has low interest rates. So and nobody wants to move to get a higher interest rate, double, triple with some people, and to buy a new house. That's the big hurdle that we're all facing right now. Yeah. And you can, as you look at the chart here, we've got the various years up here, and you see the pending demand for home purchase in homes out there has gone down considerably. To Harry's point of business and the real estate market, all of the brokerages here throughout Southern California have experienced, downturn in sales and in revenue. What's the future look like for next year, 2025? I think personally, I do not see interest rates coming down, considerably to where it's going to prompt a mad dash for people sitting on the sidelines to purchase new homes. I think if anything, we may see some relief, maybe into the sixes, down low sixes into the possibly high fives. But short of that, I don't think that that's going to happen. And we're certainly not going to see the grand old years of 3% or low fours. That's a thing of the past, unless something changes that on the geopolitical realm of things. But so that, as you can see here, the demand here with LA County, all of our major counties in Southern California have gone down. We are, in comparison to last year, down considerably as well. And when I say considerably, let me bring up this other chart here. The date, in comparison to last year, we're down at probably overall year over year, probably close to 10% of what we're looking at, even though the chart here, depending on the price of your property and what you're looking at, overall we're running around probably close to 10% there for all different product lines.
Boy, that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Ginger, back to you. As we got around 10–12 minutes remaining here, we want to make sure we touch on all the bases, and all of you are exchanging your contact information. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, let me get that.
So, Ginger, what key metrics or components should organizations consider when measuring the ROI of their relocation and global mobility programs? Key metrics.
Well, and as I mentioned before, it's those hard costs, it's the soft costs, it's the employee costs, and it's the risk. When it comes to risk, there's the risk that one associates with international mobility with immigration. You don't want somebody saying, well, my new boss said I should come to Toronto and start working, and we'll work out that immigration stuff later. Nope. We don't want that. Nope. We need to, I used to tell our recruiters that you needed to stop, drop, and roll over to mobility before you made an offer, when you're doing that vetting of that candidate. If they're not a citizen or a passport holder or somehow otherwise able to transfer there. So, you're looking at the risk for a company and a risk for an individual if they start working in a country before the country says yes. You can be barred. The company could go under audits for both immigration and tax, and those can last multi-years, and you can have fines if you're not being compliant in withholding and payment of local taxes, whether it's in the United States, because we like to make things complex here, and let's have 50 different state tax, income tax, type of rules. So you've got you've got to be sensitive and knowledgeable and work with your organizations to make sure everyone understands who's where, what they're doing, and how long they've been there and how long they intend to be there.
So, Ginger, it's about culture or rules of the
Yeah.
road, some
It is.
unspoken, but now they have to be spoken, right?
Right, and they have to be, and that's where having an RMC who's aware of that, and we're reporting information to payroll anyways, we have those relationships where we can say, okay, well, here's the situation. Now, we're not going to give people tax advice or immigration advice, but we can tell them to mind the gap and to understand and to go seek some advice from their professionals for their situations. So we're going to be navigating and guiding them to what's right for their company.
So the seat at the table thing, it doesn't go away. So in your years of experience with Coca-Cola, which is a huge company, uh, did the C-suite take mobility serious before things blew up, and then they had to take it serious?
No, they always took it serious.
Yeah.
We were operating in, almost 200 countries. But having mobility for the Coca-Cola company as a whole, within that organization, mobility traffic lanes were probably 80 countries. And so you had a high sense of mobility at Coca-Cola. And, it's, they, I worked for the Coca-Cola Enterprises for a long time. And so within that organization, it was a smaller number of countries. And I found in that organization as well, they were very sensitive, but also because we grew by acquisition. And so I think one of the important things is for companies to make sure mobility professionals are involved in that acquisition playbook planning stages, especially when immigration is involved. I used to manage immigration and expatriate tax services as well. So not everybody, is from where you think they are and can work anywhere. And, you just have to be sensitive to that when you're shuffling chairs. And
So,
so,
Ginger Merrick, I really appreciate your vision and being a sponsor, of course. Thank you.
yeah,
Interlink Relocation Resources. Um,
And I
it's
got another idea for
um,
you.
there's a major. Wait one second. There's a major company doing major things, and it's because of you, Ginger, because I mean,
well, it's because I'm
Mr.
tired.
Bilderbeck was
We're
he's
surrounded
really
by,
smart to have you, but you are so well known in the industry and respected for crossing the T's and dotting those I's. It keeps companies out of trouble.
yeah. And that's the thing is a lot of our job and my job is education. Educating our
and
clients.
communicating it.
Yes, and making sure that people understand that this is a fluid market. Our mobility, our real estate, as we were discussing earlier, it's fluid nature with what's happening right now. And we have to be ready to adapt and change.
Yeah, thank you so much, Harry. I'm sorry I interrupted. Go ahead.
No, I thought, uh, before this is over, I thought I'd share, all these statistics, from of the Federal National Finance Authority. And I use this forever because what was mentioned, educating people where they're going to, coming from. And this is every closed sale is the database of a mortgage in USA. And I'm going to put this up so you can get an idea. See that? And this is how you got 100 cities, just like that. And what this will do, and just look it up, uh, Federal Housing Finance Agency. Not only this, but then what you can do, this is the top 100 cities, but then you can put your own city in there. Like now you see, here's Colorado Springs at the top. and how it relatively strength compares to every other city. So when you're dealing with moving a transferee from here to there, wherever, it's great. And then what else comes along with that? Look at this. This is what a transferee would like to know. What's the relative strength of the appreciation in a city? And this is all done just like this. And you can see what's the strength. So this just kind of gives you an idea. And you can look at this for every city of the top 100 cities of USA. I have used this for years, and it's got a great factual database because it's every closing with every new mortgage, FHA, VA, conventional or private, across USA. So I thought I'd share that as
Which
well.
one is it? What is it, Harry?
Okay, it's called Federal Housing Finance Agency. And obviously it's a government, so you can subscribe to it, no cost. It's great data. It is black and white. It's factual. The only data, think about this, that is not a part of the closings are cash. It's every other thing with a loan is a part of the database here, but it eliminates cash closings because this is a finance agency.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
So we've learned a lot today in the last hour as we come to a close here. I really thank you guys for sharing information. Jen, you got your finger on money, so let's close with you. So what do you think about interest rates?
Well, I do think they'll go down a little bit with the new administration. But like everyone said, we're never going to see 3% rates again, right? On there. So I'm looking forward to an exciting 2025 on there, but mortgage lock will still be a real thing, and we're still going to have to deal with that coming down, and we're all going to have to figure out ways to help buyers move into that next step for their, with relocations being so you got to move or the job isn't there for most of the situations. There's still going to be a huge player in this for us on there, and being able to offer buyers programs of how to deal with it in 12 to 18 months of when the rates do go down, buy now and adjust later, and what we can do to offer programs and services to our clients for that.
Thank you so much for doing this. I welcome you to come back and do more as we roll out this Global Relocation News magazine on TV. By the way, we're also doing an audio recording of this. Some people like to go out for a walk or a jog and listen to what we're doing rather than sit in front of a screen. So that is becoming a popular vehicle. We'll get you that also. It won't be today, but in coming days. So back to you, Chris, as we come to a close here in our beloved Southern California. Um, um, as I said, when I came here in 1980 to do a relocation magazine without knowing anything about Southern California, that was kind of stupid. But but it actually gave me a perspective, and the Chamber of Commerce took it under their wing and guided me around to who to go see and where to go. And so I think you and I first met when I was looking at Marina del Rey, all that open land at the time, and then all of a sudden, Hollywood began making movies over there, and now all of a sudden, the Marina del Rey area is hot, 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 and on Silicon Beach
Yeah.
is what it's called. So, talk to us about Silicon Beach. It really is. It's not a low cost alternative to Silicon
Mhm.
Valley, but it's you don't have to relocate all the people from LA.
Well, Silicon Beach has evolved to not only for the tech industry, but also the biomed industry. There's a lot of biomed companies that have settled in this area, a lot of startups, and it's really taking off in that industry as well. It's been interesting when we first opened up here, Ed, you were asking about the defense contractors and defense industry. Well, a lot of them were over in that area, the big names that we all know of, and they had moved out, relocated their companies, headquarters to other areas of the country. And it's a vacuum that kind of gets brings other industries in, and with the tech industry, with the major corporations out there. And then now the biomed companies are settling in there as well. So it's a booming area. Other areas in Southern California, actually, interestingly, it keeps on growing. We get inbound people all the time, even though a lot are moving out. But it seems to still where there's people coming in here, and a lot attributed to the weather and the ability to start up a business and work for corporations. So it's a vibrant area.
Yeah, here in San Diego, of course, Qualcomm has grown. Their tech and everything, connected with semiconductors in the phone, and now they're in talks to take over Intel, which is huge, and and Intel has been awarded under the U.S. Chips Science Act to bring onshore semiconductor stuff. Intel's got like an $8 billion commitment. So, I mean, this is like crazy making of what's to come, not right away, but what's to come in Southern California. And the big suburb called Phoenix is,
Yeah.
I mean, that's where everything is going to be manufactured rather than here. But still, all the executives are in Southern California. So it's really it's a never-ending cycle for Southern California, as I see it. So more on this later as we roll out global relocation news. We'll do more than Southern California, of course, and we'll go around the world. Our meeting in New York is on December 12th, and you would think that that's big enough, but we have people from Europe and Latin America and Norway, Sweden are going to be on that call. And our meeting in London in April will be hosted by the Global Trade Bank, HSBC, for the fourth time inside their London offices. So I'm really honored to be able to do that. But it all started from here in Southern California. And so I thank you. James Moss, I understand you're LA bound. You're coming to California to do some business, and we're not going to see you in New York, right?
Yeah, the timings are sadly like just ships crossing the night, unfortunately.
Yeah,
So yeah,
right.
I'm going to be in Los Angeles for like 3 or 4 days, and then dashing back. And then, so sorry,
Well,
I would love to be there. Sounds a fantastic conference. Ed. It
well,
really does.
make sure you bring suntan lotion.
Yeah, I burn easily.
Ginger Merrick, thank you very much for being here, and I welcome you to come back as we further explore this. Um, Chris, let's stay in touch. Jen, I welcome you back, of course. Okay, so I hope everybody shared their contact details in the chat. Um, so, Christian, thank you so much for being on our program, 40 times or so? It's
50.
just
Today
amazing.
is the 50th. Thanks for bringing
50,
that up. I counted.
yeah, that is just amazing. And the growth and development of this, and I'll be real quick here, uh, has come from the people like you, Christian,
Thank
who
you.
about different perspective than I would bring, of course, and your depth of vision and personal experience, and particularly with two Gen Zs in your family, and having one of them on our program when we talk about Gen Z and
Right.
communicating. So, why don't you close out this show by talking about Gen Z, because it's the future.
Yeah, so Gen Z, very interesting to try to pinpoint what the challenges are, Gen Z in the workplace. As Ed alluded to, I have two daughters that are Gen Z, and one of them has been on Ed's show 4 times, sharing her perspective. This came about because we were talking about Gen Z, and I said, well, I have Gen Z in-house, and that's how this came about. I think that we will all need to think about not just Gen Z, but the generation after that, which is called Generation Alpha, and that will be the first generation that grows up with AI. And none of us really know what that's going to mean. But when I talk to my daughters, it's very interesting how they see what's coming. Some of their peers, aged 19, 20, already have young children. So this is reality now.
That's interesting. James, you have twin boys who are teenagers, right?
Yeah, I have twin boys, 16-year-old boys, and it's fascinating listening to Christian
Thank
on
you.
Gen Z because a huge number, proportionally, of our users on Curse and Reload on using the app are Gen Z and very young millennials. And what we did, and again, it's really interesting listening to Ginger as well on this point, is that a lot of relocation is a little bit old school in terms of communication. And, we relocated a number of people into New York this summer, in the sort of usual movement. And it was really interesting that these Gen Z young millennials, these are people probably in their mid-20s to early 30s. And do you know what? They all rock up with backpacks. They're doing everything on mobile phones. They're communicating totally differently from the traditional relocation situations that we used to work with. I had a very experienced award-winning relocation company in London that I sold before I came to the States. We had some really big name clients, I'm delighted to say. And none of them operated this way. And what I found particularly with Curse and Relo, is that the way we work and interact with these younger transferees is totally different from the old school. It's faster, it's more efficient, and it's actually much easier to deal with because they do it on their own terms. And you don't have to spend as much time, frankly, faffing around, being out and about, meeting people on the street, taking for cups of coffee and all the rest of it. They actually want to get the job done. And by using the internet, by using portals, by using secure, easy to use communications, makes the whole thing, just streamlines it and strips a lot of the hassle out of it. It also strips a lot of the costs out. And I'd just like to mention that because it's come up and I think it's a really good point in the changing
Fascinating.
generations.
Thank you all for being on the show. Please come back. I'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
You'll all
everybody.
get a copy of this program, if not today, then tomorrow for sure.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank
Nice
Wonderful.
meeting
Thanks,
everybody.
Ed.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.